welcome to this centennial dinner for the Otakeho Hall. Just to give you a brief idea of what the program is, calling on Ken Tarrant-Soon to say grace, then we'll have the main course, then Alderman Fleming will give a resume covering the first 50 years, followed by dessert, and then Lorna will continue with the second 50 years, and then the formal part will carry on. So we've tossed a coin, and we're going to go around the tables anti-clockwise to save any confusion. So we're starting on this side, and the meal is out in the lounge. So, Ken, could you say grace, please?
I've got your books to go back to. Doesn't it smell nice?
Centennial cake. These are all the ex-Otakeho residents come back for the centennial. Managing to get a few on film.
Glass number 3, is it? Here's your fourth
Puppies are probably part of that converted. What are they on? What are they?
Can everybody hear me okay? Well, I hope with what I'm going to say will open memories and reminiscences of the first 50 years. And I've entitled this, Setting the Scene. To abridge 100 years' history of a hall is like trying to clothe a skeleton, because you have the structure, lacking the heartbeat. We know nothing of the person's personality, their humour, laughter, sporting interests, musical tastes, dance preferences, or the intelligent exchange of ideas. So be it with a hall. There is no spirit or atmosphere unless people give it that life. The citizens of this community that have gone before us can be remembered in the well-known verse of the hymn. Time, like an ever-rolling stream, bears all its people away. They fly forgotten as a dream lies at the opening day. So today we remember these people from the ever-rolling stream of time and recall their contributions that gave this hall its special character. Now, what better place is there to start than at the beginning? And this is after New Zealand had been dunked a few times under the sea, fished up by Maui, shaken by a series of earthquakes, and not to be outdone, Mount Taranaki Egmont added its contribution to the soil fertility of this area. The very first settlers arrived by canoe or travelled overland and saw amongst the fern, flax, toi and toot that the land was good. They worked with nature and constructed their paths and multiplied. Then in the 1880s, this way of life changed with the arrival of a different pioneer with strange customs, and they too realised the potential of the land. These people worked to tame nature by clearing and draining. After this, they ploughed and planted the land in wheat, barley and oats. After this time of activity, there would be a need to relax and socialise in this tranquil infant village of Otakeho. The building most suitable for these grand occasions would be the blacksmith forge, owned by Mr. McCall. A working bee would hastily construct a dance floor. Picture now the happy groups arriving for the grand balls in their horse-drawn transport, the jangling harness, the rhythmic clip-clop of the horses' hooves over the tracks, the passengers warmly wrapped and singing joyfully to the starry sky. A peep inside the forge would reveal the men in their tuxedos, suits, ties and white gloves, and the ladies in flowing ball gowns, gliding gracefully to the music of the accordionist, Mr. Conaglan, and the violinist, Mr. Hurley from Bahama. The next day, the floor would be removed, and Mr. McCall would resume business as usual. Thus, the need for a more permanent structure was realised, and notices appear in the Hara Star, convening a public meeting. These prove interesting reading, as you gradually feel the support mounting as the district worked to build the town hall. Wednesday, January the 13th, 1897. Meeting, Republic Hall at Otakeho, is convened for Saturday next. Saturday, January the 16th, 1897. Reminder is given of a meeting to be held at Otakeho School to consider erection of a public hall this evening. Ladies requested to attend. Later we find reported the results of these meetings, dated February Monday the 8th, 1897. The people of Otakeho district have at last fairly woke up to the fact that they ought to have a public hall, and they mean business, of land on the Aurora Road for the hall. An organising committee was formed with Mr. E.H. Godsall as chairman and W. Hill as secretary. Who the committee members were have been lost in the mists of time. From the Otakeho School in District Centennial 1884 to 1984, we read that the contract tenders were called for the building of a main hall, 60 feet long by 30 feet wide, with a stage, and 2 small rooms at the back, all unlined. Toilets detached 20 yards away. The successful tenderer was Mr. Sinclair, with a price of just under £400. While not disputing the previous researched extract, we would like to record information passed from the late Franklin Fleming to son Gordon, that a Mick Ryan played some part in the hall construction. The building was not without an accident, as a man fell and sustained an injury to a collarbone or arm. Reported in the Hara Star, Thursday, April the 15th, 1897. The Otakeho Public Hall Society hold a general meeting on Saturday evening to receive reports of committee appointed to draw up rules. More reports appear in the Hara Star of the activities planned to meet the hall costs. While this fundraising was progressing, we can assume that the timber arrived by drays, whether from the mill at Tekeri or astute use made of the timber trade that plied between the plains and Inglewood, because he was offered building material at lower rates. These snippets of information cannot be confirmed. After driving their horse-drawn transport over the forming access roads, patrons would arrive in their finery to see performed on the Tuesday, 11th of May, Mr. and Mrs. Maury act Husband and Clover. This probably was the first play acted in the hall, and a substantial addition to the building fund was anticipated. Public notice appears in the Hara Star on the 13th of May 1897. Otakeho Bazaar opened on Tuesday the 18th by Mr. F. Maguire, Member of the House of Representatives. On Wednesday evening, the Hara Band will be present and playing selections throughout the evening. In addition to sale, clothing, fancy goods, fruit, flowers, produce, etc., there will be a doll cake, pincushion competitions, raffles, etc. Whilst the tea and refreshments will be the best and obtainable at any time, we can say everything collected by the committee for sale is very good, and the bazaar will be one of the most deserving yet held on the coast. 20th of May 1897. At the Otakeho Bazaar on Wednesday evening, there were about 300 people present and £72 was taken, bringing the total to £153, and there are yet left a quantity of articles of value. So that the bazaar has been most successful, notwithstanding the drawback of the broken weather. Friday the 4th, 1897. It will be seen by advertisement that a grand opening ball will be held in Otakeho Town Hall on Friday the 18th of June. The proceeds to go to the piano fund. An attraction will be the waltzing competition. The winners to be decided by ballot. The ball should go off with the usual vim characteristic of Otakeho functions. Picture again people arriving, using the transport of the day, and dressed in the correct attire for the grand opening ball. The hall, fresh and new, decorated with ferns. From the windows, a soft, inviting glow of lamps. We assume that there was a fire lit and the smoke eddying its way through the tin chimney, adding a homely touch. The account of this grand event was recorded in the Hara Star, Saturday the 26th of June 1897. Otakeho Hall on Friday night last was, writes correspondent, a big turnout, about 70 couples, excluding about 80 onlookers, taking part in the dancing, which was kept merrily going up to 5 o'clock. The floor gives promise of being an excellent one after little use. The music, piano and cornet was given by Messrs. Datson and Stowell in excellent time. The refreshment provided by the ladies around the district were of great variety, toothsome and abundant, a feature being a large bridal cake won by Mr. Godsall at the bazaar and kindly handed over to the ball committee. The management of the ball was in the hands of W. Dempster, J. Glenn and W. Hill, who carried out their duties in a successful and happy manner. The waltzing competition was won by Miss Ryan and Mr. A. Carroll, about 10 couples taking part. The hall now over the years becomes the focus for varied activities. A strong debating society was formed, with key members being Messrs. W. Blair, W. Hill, Blennerhassett and Milne. To add variety to these evenings, elocutionary items were presented, or the vocalist Mr. Dave Chambers entertained. Other musicians who have entertained during the years were Messrs. J. Datson and F. Stevenson of Mania, G. Smith, C. Davies and Miss L. Espana of Harborough. 1903, the Farmers' Union formed. These peaceful times were soon to be shattered with the outbreak of the First World War. We presume that there were farewells for the young men who had adventure on their minds and later returned to welcome home celebrations, old heads on young shoulders. The pace of the district is now changing from the leisurely horse transport and dignified ball days to motorised vehicles. The roads were being upgraded by metalling or tar sealing. Milking herds graze contentedly on green pastures. Regretfully, we close a chapter of a gracious 25 years era. Interwoven through these years are the activities of the Otakeho Union Sunday School, who guided the young people on Christian principles. The headmaster, Mr. Honorary, was the founder. Later, it was relocated from the school to the hall. Superintendents of the Sunday School have been Messrs. E. Wells, T. Owen and Mrs. Stanley Fleming. Their able assistants have been Miss Maud, Bessie and Fanny Lee Fleming, Eileen Surgener, Flo Whitcomb, as well as Mrs. Fred Bowes. Mr. E. Wells is reported to have looked like the pictures of the Lord, as he sported a distinctive beard. One day, as a young mother drove past the hall, she was amused to hear Bill say, "Can't see the Lord today." It was unfortunate that in 1928, the early hall committee books were lost in the store fire. We have consulted ex-residents, Mr Lindsay and Miss Helen Nichols, Mrs Dina Stone, Mrs Gladys Campbell, on their early recollections of the hall usage in the 1920s. Miss Helen Nichols remembers at the age of 8 years old, dressed in correct costume, shuffling on stage with her arms folded into her sleeves, partaking in the school's production of Aladdin. There were occasional lantern slide shows for the public, and Helen remembers her father attending the smoke concerts, organised by the Farmers' Union. Dina remembers having meals at the hotel after basketball practice with Betty McCallum and her friend Miss Beryl Eves from the store. Living at the hotel during this time was Mr Ted Andrews, the manager, his sister Mrs White, the cook, her daughter Miss Alice White, and granddaughter to Mrs White, Betty McCallum. All have fond memories of Miss Alice White, a person with a distinctive Yorkshire accent, as a short, thick, set lady, rosy complexioned, and her prominent blue to grey coloured eyes. To them as children she appeared firm but kindly. With nostalgia they spoke of the children's fancy dress parties Alice organised with the help of Mrs H.J. Eves and parading to the music played by Mrs Eileen Mudford. Alice played a dominant part in liaising with the hall committee and tennis club and social events for funds. There was organised Grand New Year balls, euchre and dance evenings. A ball was organised for funds needed for kitchen extensions, and in the later part of 1930, what better than a switching on ball to mark the hall's connection to the South Taranaki Electric Power Board. Mrs Gladys Campbell can remember winning a waltzing competition with Mr Bill Grimley sometime during these years. The main orchestras or bands engaged during these 25 years were Hawkers from New Plymouth, Vincent's, Ambassadors, Majestic, Atrils and Wills from Harborough. Between 1928 and 1935, Dina recalls young people dancing under the tuition of Mr and Mrs Barney Badlands, and the entrance for that was sixpence. An appreciation was accorded to Mr Len Mudford for the hall's use of the water wheel. We also read that 2 benzene lamps were purchased. Can anybody present recall the 2 lighting or heating systems being used before the switching on ball? We find on the 6th of May 1933, proposed by Mr A. Bayliss and seconded by Mr L. Mudford, that Miss Alice White be elected a life member to the Otakeho Public Hall Society on account of the support rendered by her during past years, particularly 1933. Also, that secretary write to Miss White a letter of appreciation, and that was carried by acclamation. About this time, a stern letter was sent to the Tug of War Club to pay their hall hire fees. 1930, Mr Whiting, the manager of Opanaki Pictures, applies for permission to operate in the hall. It was proposed by Miss Alice White that this application be absolutely requested. It was. In 1931, August, the Otakeho branch of the Women's Division was formed, with Lady Isabella Le Fleming as first president and Mrs Alf Walker as first secretary. This organisation has been prominent in the district for 66 years. Can any of you recall these activities listed? A nativity play produced by Mrs Stanley Fleming in the late 1930s. Miss Helen Nichols remembers assisting with this. 1934, Christmas tree evening for the children of the district. The hall charge for this was 7 and 6. 1937, a New Year ball where Mr Cook conducted an ice cream bar. The quantity of ice cream bought was 3 gallons and 20 dozen soft drink bottles. April 14th, 1937, Mr Smith and his team of badminton players gave a demonstration. Conclusion of the evening, a club was formed. Early 1930s, Girl Guide Club had their birthday party in the hall, and they were charged 7 and 6 hire. Miller's Evangelistic Missionary Crusade, and they were charged 2 shillings a night. The hall was used for native rent distributions, continuation of use by the Farmers' Union. In June 1939, hall be let to the social musicians for orchestra practice. In September 1939, Mr Seaver from Harborough and his skating group allowed to use the hall for a fee of 10 shillings. Red Cross takes lessons to the residents who wish to attend. Mrs Chad Evans from Aurora approached to take dancing lessons. 1941, Home Guard signallers used the supper room on Tuesday night free of charge. An amusing incident is recorded. Some quite realistic rifles were made out of wood. One man tried to pass the guard on duty. "Give the password," was the order. "Don't know it," came the reply. "Then stand over to attention over there or I'll blow you full of bora." March 25th, 1942. Deputation of the Otakeho Emergency Hospital Committee, seeking permission to use the hall as an emergency hospital. 1938, Mania Barb's Country Queen Carnival launched. Hall used during October and November. Our representative was Miss Joyce Walker. Concert goers through these years enjoyed the vocalist, Miss Eileen Walker, Mr. Lindsay Nichols, Mrs. Charlie Burke, instrumentalist, Mr. Hector Wood, violin, Mrs. Wood piano. Mr. Bonetti taught string instruments, Mrs. Bonetti piano and vocal. They taught the children in the district, and the highlight would be their pupils' presentation concert. 1939. Residents again gathered to farewell young men for overseas active service, and evenings in 1945 for those who returned home. Up to 1947, you could refer to this period as a hall's heyday. Times were difficult and people did not travel far. Thus various organisations were made use of the hall and people attended these functions. Actually, out in the supper room there, you'll find some write-up about the switching on ball, and also 1930, a copy of what some of you wore when you went to the fancy dress ball. I found one man went as a white rabbit. So do have a look at those. Thank you very much.
The Centenary
Ladies and gentlemen, it's great to see so many people here today. A lot of old faces that I know, and not so old. And on behalf of the Putt family, we've presented a plaque to the Otakeho Hall, and it reads, presented to the Otakeho Hall Society by the Putt family, commemorating the Hall's centennial 1997. I think my grandfather was chairman for a few years. My father was secretary for a few years. I think his first secretary way back in 1930 for about 6 months, but I don't know what he did the next 6 months. Must have ran away. Thanks very much, everybody, for coming anyway.
Reunions, there are people that are overlooked, and it has come to my attention that, and I'd like a big round of applause for this lady. She is 91 years of age. So let's give her a big hand. Mrs. Benton. I've tried to do my homework as well as possible, but I'll read out what's written here. Flora was born to Sylvanus and Mary Davies 91.5 years ago in the old Davies homestead up Aurora Road. Flora became a noted singer under the tuition of Connie Riley, and she sang often in this hall during the 1931, and she used to sing to the men that were going overseas. She was also, Brian and her brother went to the Otakeho school. Brian and company in the champion hockey team for the Taranaki 1929 and 1930. I think that deserves a round of applause too, don't you? Continue on from where I left off. Now, Mr. Donald Hasty, as you know, is the chairman of the Hall Committee, and Mr. Jack Landers, Egmont Plains member. Well, they will be speaking on events from 1990 until the present time. So I only have 43 years to deal with this time, and that's from this time, from 1947 to 1990. And these years can be entitled The Winds of Change. During these years, the community experienced amalgamations of dairy factories and farms. More use is made of contractors for hedge cutting, top dressing, haymaking, and the tanker for milk transport. The farm employee is drifting away from the land to seek employment elsewhere. This gradual downturn of the population has an effect on the Hall's revenue, and the parity is lost for maintenance. The Presbyterian church service gallantly continued until the late 1950s, when the Hall proclaims once a month a divine atmosphere on Sundays. Mrs. Ann Kirk can remember the organ stored in a cupboard in the ladies' cloakroom. The organ was played by Mrs. Stanley Fleming or Mrs. McKay from Oyo. Whatever happened to the organ? Does anybody know? Mrs. Margaret McNeill Adams becomes a Sunday school teacher after Mrs. Fred Bowes. The Union Sunday Schools ceased in the late 1950s as well. Reverend John Crawford is claimed to have taken the last service. How many of you present can recall the church service at the Otakeho Hall on the 16th of May 1954, marking the school's 70th Jubilee? Do any of you remember that? Mrs. Edith Hooper began a Friday night Bible class in Young People's Club, and Mrs. Clara O'Brien's talents in writing and producing topical plays? Good. The interest was shown in our hobbies exhibition in 1973. Did you have your hobby on display? The branch milestones have been celebrated at the Hall, the 21st, 25th, 40th, but of all the milestones, the Golden Jubilee, held on the 20th of June 1981, must rank as memorable. The hall, which had been renovated and painted, presented a fine picture. To commemorate this occasion, a useful tea trolley was donated to the Hall Society. Mr. Murray McNeill Adams received it on the Society's behalf. Through the years, the branch has held in the Hall. Welcome to the District Coffeeship. Division has had cradled in the Hall the library that was commenced in 1931 by Mrs. T. Mitchell. Then in 1975, the creche was formed after negotiations with social welfare, health departments and fire board re-safety requirements and regulations. Under the supervision of Mrs. Ida Rouse and Anne Murdoch and WDF members, this scheme came into operation. Mothers and children benefited from this contact and firm friendships were made. Held their annual general meetings at the Hall or organised social functions for fundraising. Unfortunately, these clubs are no longer in existence. We also remembers the club buying 4 rackets for members' use, as well as the shuttlecocks. During World War II, the club was forced into recess. In 1943, it was reactivated as a Young People's Club, where there was many a play for game, set and match. Subscription is $18, less for high school, and at present the club has a membership of 30. The school has used the hall for concerts and fancy dress balls over the years. Truly, the most memorable years would have been in the 1950s. Did your children, or were you a child at the time, taking part in Buster Walden's production of Henniemeyer? The efforts of Myra Hughes, an accompanist, Mrs. Jane Lloyd, working with the Young People's Choir, and producing the operetta, Gypsy Gay. Do any of you remember this entertainment continued for a number of years? Lindsay Nichols has a hazy recollection of a van parked outside the hall, with a projector beaming from this onto the screen inside the hall. We assumed this was the reason why the Hall Committee applied for a licence to hold 300 people, 14th of August 1951, and that was moved by A. Ross and seconded by H. Putt. At different times, Mr. R.B. Jury from Kauponga and Mr. R. Young from Manaia were interested in this venture. Nothing concrete from this interest appears to have eventuated. Do any of you know anything about that? A very positive committee. You do have problems in getting people involved in your social activities, but through sheer perseverance, you make it. It is pleasant to read that nobody leaves Otakeho without a small memento. A few years ago, you ran a disco for teenagers. You had them involved with the planning. To use a phrase, it was the way to go. Have you thought of asking the children of what they would like to attend at the hall? 3 children, you get parents interested. Is it possible to plan a family games evening on a Friday night? Fee or donation? From the society, there are elected 9 members who become the committee, plus secretary and chairman. These people now become responsible for the maintenance and appearance of the hall. From 1928, we read of kitchen extensions, with a successful tenderer being Rangi Maha and Dick Ngatai for the grand sum of £25.15. A list of maintenance includes over the years mending window weights, lining kitchens and cloakrooms, painting the hall ceiling for badminton, repairing or making seating, re-roofing and replacing downpipe. Have you ever heard one for them? Have you ever heard one for them? No, right. Well, a certain Irishman by the name of Barney lived in... a certain Irishman by the name of Barney lived in our district. In 1954, he offered 5 calves towards an organised Bobby Calf Fund drive. 19 years later, it was an acceptable idea. A step-toe auction was organised in 1982 and proved popular. The committee were very thrifty people as well. In the year 1938, Women's Division asked that an electric water heater be installed in the hall. The electric point was installed by Lambert's Electrical. Mr. Mudford was asked to make an urn. 1952, problems with the urn, so the element was replaced. Finally, the 9th of November 1957, a zip heater was up and heating. Behind the scenes, I detect users' frustrations. What happened? Neil Adams was made a life member in 1983. Now, Murray, in delivering his annual report in 1963, specially mentioned the service of Mr. L.G. Mudford, Hall Committee member from 1921 until 1965. At different times he elected chairman and served as secretary, a time span of 44 years. Reading through the minute books, I found myself quietly endorsing Murray's tribute. 1969, Mr. Kahu's public spiritedness in donating part of his land to the Hall Society was recorded in the minute books. From its windows have shone candlelight, gas lamps and electricity. It has been the meeting place for humour through plays and lively debates, sporting club activities, dances from the gracious and dignified balls to the square dancing, discos and cabarets, intelligent exchange of ideas through speakers, sadness, and the farewelling of young men for active service, and their laughter while at the creche, farewells and welcoming in of old and new residents, kitchen teas.
Committee, both past and present, for the efforts in caretaking of the Society's Hall over the last 100 years. Tremendous effort. From year 1 to the year 100 takes people, and people have done the job well. So thank you. I hope the present generation keep up the voluntary work, which has been the policy of your forebears. The Council has recognised the contribution by making grants from time to time when applied for. Waimate West County back in 1986 applied to have this area gazetted a reserve area council simply and purely of the main reason for to be able to help the Hall Society in funding. As some of you may well know, we've got a Waimate West Development Fund, which was the council in the early years, and you've got a member in the audience today who you well know in the name of Pierce Joyce, who had a lot of knowledge of this area and other areas in the district. And the council car parks were sealed at a very early age. One of the few councils that have done that sort of thing for their ratepayers. And I hope it continues. I must say that I am deputising for the chairman of the Egmont Plains Board, who was to be here but can't. So for family reasons he's unable to attend. So I'm just filling his shoes today, and with those few words I'd just finally like to say congratulations Otakeho. Congratulations to the present committee, who the realm of keeping this all going stands at this point in time. A real plea to the younger generation to back them up and take your position on the whole society in the years to come. They need you. Thank you.
We're now going to have a musical item by the members of the Thwaites family while the cake that's been cut will be handed out. So if you'll just bear with me while they get organised. For that item that you presented to us, you can see that they have particular expertise in the piano accordions. I can see some feet tapping too when they were playing there, so probably you can remember, some of you older ones can remember dancing to piano accordion in this hall probably. That basically brings the day to a close, but if anybody has any amusing incidents or things that happened at Otakeho they'd like to relate to the rest of the people here today, feel free to do so. You can stand up where you are or come up and use the microphone, but basically that's the end of it, and I wish you all a safe journey home. Thank you.
Jack said about the hall, because you've got a beautiful hall here now. It's really a credit to you all, and I'd like to thank you for putting on this thing today. It's been really wonderful. The luncheon was lovely, and the way it was organised, I think it was really good. And the hall, to see it now, and when I used to dance in it in 1924, I can tell you it's a real difference now, and it's lovely. Thank you.
Think of the hall, someone's car got painted as well. Don't know if the council was aware of paying for that paint.
And I met my future wife, and I don't know whether that's a joke.
Best joke of your life.
I was listening to the wireless talk show, and somebody rang up as regarding the lady in red. Now, who remembers the lady in red that came to the Otakeho Hall?
Yeah.
The lady in red was a spy, and was a man which was entertained in the Otakeho Hall. And the next person that came on and read and said something about it was that it was from Christchurch, and she knew about the lady in red. And all she could say was the lady in red had gone to Australia and had an accident with her bike and was taken to hospital and found out she was a man. And she was entertained in school, and she stayed the night at Richardson's down there.
And if you put that together, what the Germans would have had up to.
One thing I omitted was I had apologies from John and Judy Knowles, Margie and Graham Crop, Roy Putt and Gordon Campbell.
Welcome to newcomers to the district. Starting in Michael Pitt, I work for Terrence, Phoebe and Barry Schrader, I work for Joyce's, Brendan Robert Thompson, working for Flemings, and Warwick and Lisa Phones, working for Ross Johnson. Also like to say well. Tim and Sarah, and also, yeah, give or take. Also, a special farewell to long-serving people of the district is John Vogel and John Owen Hooper, but unfortunately they cannot be here tonight on this occasion, but the social committee have presenting these people with tokens of the district. Tokens over people of the district. And Sue would like to come and say a few words.
Now, as we all know, this weekend we've celebrated the 100 years of the Otakeho Hall. And really what I'm going to talk about now has got nothing much to do with that, but it's still something I think needs to be mentioned. Does that make a difference? Well, we'd just like to take a minute to pay tribute to a person from Otakeho, from the Otakeho district, who has, over the years, unselfishly devoted time and effort, not quite over 100 years, but over the last 25, to coach our young people in our favourite sport of netball. This person is, of course, Margaret Putt. Everybody, ranging from young Kiwi netball teams right up to the Premier One grade of Taranaki, which is no mean feat for a small place like Otakeho. She has helped many young girls and young women to realise their potential as good, keen, disciplined netball players, many going on to play for the province and even trialling for the Silver Ferns. All Margaret's players have been able to pass on valuable knowledge and skills gained from her to their own children and even grandchildren later on in life. Having Margaret as a coach would not always have been a bed of roses. As we know, she could be a hard taskmaster. And I know this personally from the way she has me quick marching at Otakeho for exercise. Or should I say, she's marching and I'm running behind saying, wait for me! But anyway, Margaret has achieved great results over the years and the respect and affection of her players. And therefore, on behalf of all past netball players in Otakeho, we would like Margaret to come up and receive a little token of appreciation for all what she's done. Come on, Margaret.
Yes, well, I am very surprised, and I don't really know what to say. Normally, I'm on Tuesday and Thursday night with Human Young from all over the district. But really tonight, I really don't know what to say. It's such a surprise. Thank you very much.
Since it's Robert the Doris Filton's 29th wedding anniversary.
Feeding the ducks, were you? Can't even remember what I yelled out to you.
I told you what I said.
Well,